It's the 15th day of the apocalypse. The Earth has entered a new ice age. A reporter is on the news, warning everyone to stay indoors as the temperature drops faster than your mood after a sleepless night. In the middle of his speech, a plane freezes in mid-air and crashes right into him, killing him instantly. Meanwhile, inside a building stocked with rations and nearly frozen food, someone with silent footsteps is creeping around with a blood-stained iron rod. This person? It's our boy Han Feng. Suddenly, a sweet female voice calls his name. Han Feng peeks through the hole and recognizes his school friend, Yona, the one with the striking curves. She is shivering in the cold, tears in her eyes, knocking on his door. Han Feng, blushing, immediately opens the door. Despite the deadly cold, the sight of Yona warms his heart. He invites her inside, concerned for her safety in the freezing weather. And that's how a cold apocalypse becomes a bit warmer. But midway, she suddenly grabbed the door and kissed Han Feng. Before he could comprehend what was happening, she began passionately kissing him, leaving him breathless for several minutes. When she finally pulled away, a bewildered Han Feng wiped his mouth and asked Yona, "What just happened? Why did you kiss me as soon as I opened the door? What's gotten into you?" Yona, in a seductive voice, whispered that she had come to realize Han Feng was the only one she loved, and this was her confession. She continued in her alluring tone, saying that with the world in chaos, everyone was revealing their true colors. Only Han Feng was treating her kindly, providing her with free food, water, and shelter, and taking care of her. She realized that Han Feng was the man of her dreams. However, Han Feng was so shocked that he froze on the spot, unable to respond. Yona gently grabbed Han Feng's hand and placed it on her bouncy melons, whispering in his ear that if Han Feng didn't believe her, he could feel her heartbeat, and she was willing to do anything Han Feng wanted. This made the already shocked Han Feng go crazy, his body temperature surging high, thinking, what does she mean by anything? Han Feng was hesitating to make the first move, so Yona made the move herself. With her leg, she started rubbing our boy's little pee-pee, and boy oh boy, Han Feng started to vibrate like an old tractor's engine, like he would explode any time now. Han Feng tried to speak, but Yona gently grabbed his face, whispering for him not to say a word. She asked him to close his eyes, promising a special gift. As soon as Han Feng complied, someone forcefully opened the door and struck him on the head. Blood poured from his wound as Yona and her real boyfriend ransacked his home. Lying on the cold, unforgiving floor, Han Feng felt his body going numb. He couldn't move his arms or legs, and his vision blurred. In disbelief, he realized this was the gift he received for his desire. As he lay there, Yona and her boyfriend began their twisted game right before his eyes, smashing melons, leaving Han Feng in shock and horror at the sight. To him, they were living nightmares. Han Feng swore that in his next life, he would become an Ultra Max Pro Max Giga Chad. Then, suddenly, something strange happened. Through the darkness, Han Feng felt warmth and saw a ray of light. He instinctively moved closer to the light, thinking it must be the path to heaven. But as soon as Han Feng touched the light, it turned red, and suddenly his entire being was consumed by searing pain. It felt as if his soul was being torn apart repeatedly. And finally, after what felt like an eternity, Han Feng woke up, drenched in sweat and utterly exhausted. The first thing he noticed was the warm sunlight streaming through the window. In a state of confusion, he sat still like a statue, trying to process everything. After about 30 minutes, he stood up, went to his balcony, and once again felt the warmth of the sun. After calming down a bit, Han Feng checked the date. It was June 28th, and the apocalypse was set to begin on July 15th. Although he was supposed to be dead, for some mysterious reason, he had come back in time, 15 days before the apocalypse. Finally, Han Feng accepted that he had been reborn, his desperate wish granted in his final moments. But that wasn't the end of it. Something strange was happening with Han Feng's body. Ever since he woke up, his right hand had been continuously glowing red, and he couldn't figure out how to stop it. It didn't hurt, it just felt a little warm, like a low-power heater. At first, Han Feng thought he was imagining things, but then, in the middle of his thoughts, he sneered. When he opened his eyes, his red glowing hand had changed to green. Before he could make sense of it, the green glow grew larger, shocking him to his core. It was troublesome enough that Han Feng's right hand had started glowing red, but now it was glowing green. Han Feng felt increasingly frustrated and confused. Suddenly, the green glow shrunk in size, and it seemed like Han Feng could control the intensity of the green glow with his will, something he couldn't do with the red glow. However, after a few minutes of unsuccessfully trying to stop the glow, a more serious issue arose. Han Feng began to feel an uncomfortable sensation, as if he had overstrained himself. All his energy started to drain from his body. Growing increasingly frustrated, Han Feng shook his hand, trying to stop it from glowing, when a thought occurred to him. What if he had gained a superpower or a cheat skill like the protagonist in a story? With this new theory in mind, Han Feng grabbed a kitchen knife, thinking that holding a weapon might trigger a reaction. But nothing happened. In fact, it only made things worse as his stomach began to growl, making him feel like he might pass out at any moment. Frustrated and feeling defeated, he opened his fridge to find something to eat, but it was completely empty, like his pockets. This was bad. He felt like he was going to die of hunger. At that moment, he would eat anything. Just then, he noticed a jar full of roasted peas. Although it wasn't a filling meal, he had no other options. He decided to eat some, and then go to the supermarket to stock up. Han Feng slowly grabbed a pea and tossed it into his mouth. But bam! Suddenly, the pea exploded in his face, filling the area with smoke. As the smoke dissipated, Han Feng found himself with a complete pea plant in his mouth. Perplexed, he removed the mysterious plant and discovered it was a fully grown pea plant, complete with fresh peas. Instantly, he felt rejuvenated, no longer tired, and the greenish light that had been troubling him had vanished. Han Feng couldn't help but wonder, was there some connection between the pea transforming into a full plant and his sudden revitalization? There was a mountain of questions in Han Feng's head, but first he decided to check the peas. He plucked one pea, and after opening it, he was utterly shocked to see fresh peas inside. This was a game changer. Han Feng finally discovered what his power was. He could grow unlimited plant-based food with his green hand. But what about the red one? Well, I think he will be able to grow living being. At least he had a clue now, and he decided to study his power more. But Han Feng had a more pressing issue at hand. He needed to stock up on supplies before the impending apocalypse. Despite the warm weather and the carefree atmosphere with people enjoying themselves outdoors, Han Feng knew that everything would soon be destroyed, a fact known only to him. Lost in thought amidst the crowd, he tried to push these disturbing thoughts aside. What puzzled him even more was the bizarre transformation of his red glowing hand into green, and how touching a pea had resulted in it growing into a full-fledged plant. What kind of twisted ability had he stumbled upon? Just as he pondered this, a sweet voice called Han Feng's name from behind. Halting his thoughts, he turned around to find none other than the gold digger, the woman he considered his greatest challenge. She was adorned in a stunning dress, exuding beauty, and with her usual seductive tone, she remarked, "What a coincidence to run into each other like this. It's almost as if fate is conspiring to unite us." Han Feng felt a chill run down his spine, as if he had encountered a ghost. After the last incident, he gets traumatized just by seeing girl, Li Hyo-na, the goddess of his dreams, his best friend for a long 3 years. Han Feng had done everything to make her happy, even though he knew he was an ugly, disgusting loser. But Han Feng never ever thought that bitch would end up killing him. Han Feng was furious, his whole body trembling. He remembered he swore to be an Ultra Pro Max Giga Chad, so he realized this was not the time to get worked up. He needed to compose himself and wait for the right moment to exact his sweet revenge. Lost in his thoughts, Han Feng was oblivious to Hyo-na calling his name repeatedly. Concerned, Hyo-na pretended to be worried, asking if Han Feng was okay and why he seemed distracted. With a smile, Han Feng politely responded that he was simply mesmerized by how beautiful she looked that day, which caused Hyo-na to blush. However, her subsequent eerie smile betrayed her true nature. She persisted with a strange, seductive tone, suggesting they go shopping now that they'd met. However, Han Feng, now exuding confidence like an Ultra Pro Max Giga Chad, brushed her off with the nonchalance your crush might show, and departed, explaining he couldn't go today. Hyo-na was left shocked and perplexed, unable to comprehend being rejected by someone she viewed as a pushover. Meanwhile, Han Feng was quietly pleased with himself. This time, Han Feng wasn't going to let Hyona treat him like her personal ATM anymore. He arrived at Walmart, the largest and most well-stocked supermarket in the East region. Aware of how quickly supplies disappeared during crises like the Ice Age, Han Feng diligently filled his cart with essentials before any potential apocalypse struck. He consulted ChatGPT for a survival guide tailored to endure the ice apocalypse, receiving a comprehensive list covering food, winter clothing, medicines, and all other necessary preparations. Currently, Han Feng's main concern was his lack of funds to procure all the necessary supplies. While his mysterious green glowing hand could solve the food problem, the rest remained unresolved. This frustration led Han Feng to curse his ancestors for not investing in gold or land when it was affordable. Suddenly, a notification on his phone caught him off guard. Upon checking, he discovered it was about a personal loan. Thanks to Han Feng's excellent credit score, he qualified for the loan. Upon receiving the message, a brilliant idea struck Han Feng. Immediately, he installed every app offering instant personal loans. With various options available, he reasoned that he might not even need to repay them post-apocalypse, where money would likely hold little value. Meanwhile, Yona seethed with anger, kicking at cans in frustration. She couldn't believe Han Feng had ignored her like this. After all, Han Feng was just one among her many admirers. Furious at his refusal, Yona seethed with anger, thinking about how pathetic he was a loser without even his own car. She vowed never to speak to him again. Suddenly, a car horn blared, startling Yona. A SUV pulled up beside her, and to her surprise, the window rolled down to reveal Han Feng inside. With a confident demeanor, he greeted Yona and asked how she was doing. Completely taken aback, Yona couldn't believe it was Han Feng in the SUV. Han Feng nonchalantly confirmed that yes, the money was his. As he approached Yona, she began to feel uneasy. He politely shared that his father had been very successful in his business in the US, and today his father had given him some money before departing from the airport. Yona was still trying to digest all this information. Upon realizing that Han Feng was essentially a good catch due to his wealthy father, Yona's attitude towards him completely changed. She quickly became emotional, tears streaming down her face as she apologized, expressing regret for suggesting they go shopping that morning when Han Feng had planned to pick up his dad from the airport. With a cute expression and wiping away her tears, she played the victim card, telling Han Feng that he had seemed distant and that she feared he might be ignoring her, his best friend. Feeling moved, Han Feng decided to play along. He gently grabbed Hyona's waist, pulled her close, and while holding her chin he said, "Why would he ever think of ditching you? She is the most important person in the world." This was enough for Hyona to once more show her true self with her creepy smile. Continuing her act, pretending to be all shy, she said that Han Feng was also very special to her. She then asked, why don't they go for a movie and have dinner at a 5-star restaurant? But Han Feng was already gone, even before she could finish her sentence, making her surprised. When she turned around, Han Feng was busy loading all the supplies into the back of the SUV, mentioning that he still had to haul everything, keeping him occupied for the day. Despite Yona's growing irritation, she politely inquired why he had purchased so much and what was inside the boxes. Han Feng nonchalantly replied that it was just household supplies, nothing particularly special. Then, feigning excitement, he suddenly mentioned he had also picked up a special gift for Yona and promised to meet up with her once he was free. Hyona departed with immense satisfaction, expressing her anticipation for the upcoming gift while inwardly reveling in her triumph, reverting to her confident demeanor, knowing she had secured a thrilling new plaything. Meanwhile, Han Feng simmered with anticipation, eagerly plotting to turn the tables when the apocalypse arrived. Determined to reveal his true nature and unsettle both Hyona and her boyfriend, he awaited his moment to assert dominance. Today was June 29th, and within a few days, the temperature would plummet, making it impossible to venture outside. The food supply was secured. The next major concern was electricity. After the apocalypse struck, the power grid would inevitably freeze, but Han Feng had that covered with a reliable generator and enough fuel to keep it running for years. So, electricity, check. Next up was the deadly cold. Han Feng had insulated his entire room so thoroughly that not a bit of cold could sneak in, Even if his fuel supply were to run out, the room would remain warm. But Han Feng didn't stop there. He reinforced the door, windows, sealing basically his entire room with metal so no one could break in. With almost all the preparations done, the only minor issue left was the limited space, but Han Feng couldn't do anything about that. By the time he finished getting everything ready, it was already July 14th, and the apocalypse was hitting tomorrow. Now, it was finally time for the main event, discovering all about his mysterious power. To survive the upcoming ice apocalypse, relying solely on supplies would only be a short-term solution. If Han Feng wanted to survive long-term, the key was to learn more about his ability to manipulate plants. First, he cooked the soybeans he had grown and decided to eat them to check if they were edible. Although Han Feng was hesitant, worrying they might be poisonous, he had no other choice. Taking a deep breath, Han Feng took a bite. To his surprise, it tasted just like any normal soybean. In fact, it was incredibly delicious. This was a huge discovery for Han Feng, as it meant he would never run out of food. The next step was to understand how his ability actually worked. So far, Han Feng had only tried it on soybeans. He opened his fridge, which was fully stocked with all kinds of food, and decided to test if his ability also worked on other plants. From morning to evening, Han Feng worked tirelessly. When he finally opened his eyes, his head was spinning, and he felt extremely exhausted. Around him were various vegetables and strange black substances. Going back to 5 hours earlier, Han Feng had taken out all the vegetables to see if he could grow them as he did with the soybeans. The results varied. Some vegetables didn't react at all. Some grew from seeds to full-grown plants just like the soybeans, and some exploded in his face. Strangely, after these explosions, the vegetables turned into a coal-like substance that was extremely light. After Han Feng tried to heat it, he found it acted just like regular coal, which made him extremely happy because now he wouldn't have to worry about the coal. He tried many more times, but the success rate remained very low. However, Han Feng began to notice a pattern. When he remained calm and focused, there was some reaction. So, he tried again, staying calm and focused, activated his ability, and bam! A fresh broccoli grew instantly in his hand. After that, Han Feng fainted. Back in the present, Han Feng was exhausted, eating the soybeans he had grown, feeling a bit happy that he had learned something about his ability. After finishing his meal, Han Feng sat in the lotus position and tried to meditate. He imagined himself out in nature, standing naked, merging his mind and body with the environment. When Han Feng opened his eyes, he felt a sense of success. This time, after activating his ability, he didn't feel his energy draining, and the green glow was much calmer and brighter. As soon as Han Feng touched a grain of rice, it grew into a full rice plant. Han Feng had finally mastered his green hand. Curious about its potential, he wondered if it could affect meat the same way it did plants. To test this, he attempted to make a piece of meat grow, but nothing happened. He held the meat for a long time, yet there was no reaction. Then, Han Feng recalled sensing two distinct colors during meditation and realized he hadn't tried using the red color on the meat. Closing his eyes, he focused on summoning the red light. Initially, nothing occurred, but after a few minutes, a red glow enveloped the meat. As it began to boil, Han Feng opened his eyes, excited, only to be met with a wave of disgust. The meat had spoiled to the extent that just the smell was enough to make him gag. He threw it on the floor, but after a while, curiosity got the better of Han Feng, and he returned to see what the meat had become. He felt a bit disappointed, thinking, was this all the red light could do? Spoil meat? Han Feng knew there had to be more. The meat looked like it had gone through a disintegration process. The word disintegration sparked an idea in his mind. He immediately grabbed some soybeans in his right hand, activating his green glow, and in his left hand, he held the meat covered in red light. If his theory was correct, then the green light represented the evolution of matter, and the red light represented the opposite, disintegration. What if he combined them? As soon as he did, Han Feng was astonished as the small, low-quality meat grew 10 times larger and transformed into premium-looking meat. Confused by what had just happened, Han Feng realized he had casually merged both powers to look cool, unaware of the impressive outcome. The soybean in his left hand had vanished had it merged with the meat. This was too much for Han Feng to process, so he decided to inspect the meat. After smelling and tasting it, he found that it looked, felt, and smelled exactly like meat, but somehow fresher and more premium. He decided to try this again, but ended up ruining all the meat, which made him beat the floor in frustration. However, he paused, realizing that today had been productive as he had discovered a bit more about his abilities. He wondered if mastering this power could make him the sole survivor standing at the pinnacle of this apocalyptic world. But in the middle of his sweet dream, a chilling thought froze him. He had forgotten about weapons. After the apocalypse hits, the world will change, and he will need them for self-defense. Han Feng immediately began packing all the food, but as he did so, it finally happened. Snow began to fall outside, marking the start of the apocalypse. It was really happening. Dressed in warm clothes, Han Feng stepped onto the street. Within a few hours, the entire street was covered in snow. Though people were initially enjoying the unusual summer snowfall, it would soon turn into a disaster. Just then, a sharp voice pierced Han Feng's ears. It was a man known for his exaggerated fashion and haughty demeanor, always roaming the streets with no apparent purpose. Everyone knew him as Homeless Joe, though his real name was Brother Lai. He lived in the same neighborhood as Han Feng. Brother Lai acts like he's in charge of major construction projects and seems to know everyone around. In reality, he's just a big bluffer and a homeless man. However, he has connections with prominent builders and even gangsters, so everyone treats him well. He was the right person to get guns from, but starting a conversation with him was the tough part. Nervously, Han Feng first waved at Brother Lai, calling his name. Acting a little egotistical, Brother Lai asked if he knew Han Feng. Han Feng explained that they lived in the same neighborhood and regularly bumped into each other. Brother Lai, appearing bored, said he was pretty busy and apologized for not remembering everyone's face. Then, Han Feng, ensuring no one else was around, approached Brother Lai and whispered in his ear, asking if he dealt with guns. This shocked Brother Lai. Panicked, he asked why Han Feng needed that, but Han Feng remained silent. He couldn't reveal that the world would end in a few days. Seeing Han Feng's silence, Brother Lai assumed he was planning something drastic, like robbing a bank, and warned him against doing anything reckless. On the spot, Han Feng came up with an excuse, explaining that it wasn't what Brother Lai was thinking. He recounted an incident from one day when he was riding his bike to work and encountered an old man who was spitting everywhere, eventually spitting right on his face. Han Feng confronted the old man, demanding an apology, but the man spat on his face again. Furious, Han Feng gave him a good beating. However, the next day, the same old man returned with his gang and beat Han Feng severely. Since then, whenever they see Han Feng, they come to attack him, turning his life into a living hell. That's why he needed the gun for self-defense, to intimidate them. Han Feng didn't expect this cliché story to succeed, but it worked wonders. Brother Lai became emotional and vowed to assist Han Feng. In the next moment, Brother Lai became like a blood brother to Han Feng, insisting he could now call him Big Bro. He promised to fulfill Han Feng's request, but then mentioned they needed to head to the bus stop because his Mercedes was being serviced. There's only so much bluffing a person can do, but now it didn't matter. Han Feng thought that despite Brother Lai's penchant for exaggeration, he wasn't a bad person. Han Feng pulled out his SUV, reassuring Brother Lai not to worry because he had his own car. Brother Lai's unexpected display surprised Han Feng as they drove. He hadn't pegged Han Feng as a wealthy individual. However, Han Feng soon took out his Samsung Galaxy S9 and began uploading photos to Instagram, boasting about their ride. Eventually, they arrived at their destination where people were already feeling the chill, warming themselves with a wood fire. As Brother Lai stepped out of the SUV, a group of onlookers gathered around, astonished by the sight of the latest Tiger SUV. They eagerly asked Brother Lai about its cost, to which he casually replied it was just $20,000, downplaying its significance. Meanwhile, Han Feng, unfazed by Brother Lai's exaggerations, was accustomed to such behavior. Inside, they found the boss seated and waiting. Brother Lai, a bit apprehensive, introduced Han Feng to the boss, mentioning he was interested in purchasing a firearm. Upon hearing this, the boss scrutinized Han Feng, sending shivers down his spine. Then, with a smirk, the boss commented that he had expected Brother Lai to bring something intriguing, But instead, it seemed like a false alarm. With a casual toss, the boss offered a gun as if it were a triviality, quoting a price of $6 thus. Seeing the boss's dismissive attitude, Han Feng, still nervously, inquired if he could acquire something with a longer barrel and an 8x scope. The boss paused briefly, then exploded, asking if Han Feng was requesting a damn sniper rifle. He questioned whether Han Feng thought the place was a firearm supermarket and why a young person like him needed a sniper rifle planning a bank heist, perhaps. Seeing the boss getting agitated, Brother Lai swiftly intervened to diffuse the tension. He recounted Han Feng's sad and tragic tale about his ex-wife unexpectedly showing up with 3 children from different fathers, among other unknowns, to his boss. The boss became immediately enraged, slamming his hand down on the desk and expressing disbelief at how despicable Han Feng's wife could be. In that moment, Han Feng began to notice a strange similarity. Suddenly, the boss declared that Han Feng was now his little brother, promising to procure a sniper rifle for him. Han Feng couldn't believe how easily both he and the boss were convinced by such obviously fabricated stories. Gratefully, Han Feng thanked his boss, who then instructed his subordinate to fetch a semi-automatic rifle and even gifted Han Feng a pistol, solidifying their newfound bond. This unexpected kindness from his boss surprised Han Feng, leaving him a bit nervous as he mentioned hearing from a friend in the government about potential food and supply shortages due to abnormal weather conditions. He suggested it might be wise to stockpile essentials while they were still available. The boss and Han Feng engaged in a tense staring contest, during which the boss seemed to come to a realization. He thanked Han Feng with a solemn expression, then abruptly yelled at Brother Lai to leave, expressing his disdain for him. Outside, as Han Feng and Brother Lai walked together, Brother Lai resumed his habit of boasting, claiming credit for saving Han Feng from a dire situation with the boss. Han Feng expressed his gratitude, offering to buy Brother Lai some cigarettes as a gesture of thanks. However, Brother Lai declined the offer, insisting he didn't smoke cigarettes but preferred a specific brand of cigar called Huazi, despite its high price. Brother Lai assured Han Feng that once he received payment for his current project, he would repay the favor and even treat him to a sauna session. Meanwhile, Han Feng appeared preoccupied, lost in his own contemplations. Now that he had gathered supplies and weapons, Han Feng was all set for the early stages of the apocalypse, at least. The next priority was mastering his ability. Doing so would significantly improve his chances of survival. Lost in contemplation, Han Feng's foot suddenly slipped on ice, sending him into a full 360-degree flip before crashing painfully to the ground. He groaned, clutching his injured foot. It felt like it might be broken. Battling the pain, Han Feng handed his SUV key to his brother, Lai, insisting that he drive him to the hospital. Lai looked uneasy, admitting he didn't have a driver's license and wasn't experienced behind the wheel, but he promised to try his best. The scene quickly shifted to Brother Lai, straining to lift Han Feng onto his shoulder, looking like he might collapse at any moment. Han Feng, on the other hand, found himself contemplating how he ended up in this predicament. Meanwhile, outside, the snowstorm raged on, growing fiercer by the minute, turning the hospital into an icy fortress. Inside, a nurse sat quietly, watching the weather worsen. Suddenly, the phone rang, jolting her to her feet and causing her ample bosom to bounce. She hurried to the hallway, summoned by an emergency.